How to deal with bad managers. Let me start with something that might surprise you. According to a Gallup study of over 1 million US workers, the number one reason people leave their jobs is not salary. It's not the commute. It's not even workload. It's their managers. In fact, 50% of Americans have left a job at some point specifically to get away from a bad boss. That means right now, millions of people are sitting exactly where you are, going home drained, questioning themselves, wondering if they're the problem. You are not the problem. And in the next 12 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what is happening to you, why it's happening, and what you can do about it, starting today. Section 2. The psychology behind the toxic boss. To fight something, you have to understand it. So let's talk psychology. Researchers have identified several distinct personality types that appear in toxic leadership. The three most common. Number 1. The narcissistic manager. Dr. Paul Babiak, an organizational psychologist, spent decades studying what he called corporate psychopaths. People who mimic leadership qualities on the surface, but operate from a place of deep insecurity and a hunger for control. His research found that individuals with narcissistic and psychopathic traits are actually overrepresented in leadership positions. Why? Because charm, confidence, and the ability to self-promote get people promoted, even when those people are dangerous. A narcissistic boss takes credit for your work, humiliates you in front of colleagues, builds you up one week and tears you down the next. That cycle, idealize, devalue, discard, is not random. It's a pattern, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Number 2. The gaslighting manager. Gaslighting, a term that comes from a 1944 psychological thriller, refers to a form of manipulation where someone causes you to question your own reality. In the workplace, this looks like, "I never said that. You're too sensitive. That meeting went fine. I don't know why you're upset." Dr. Robin Stern, author of The Gaslight Effect, describes it as a dance, one person desperate to make sense of their world, the other rewriting the rules every time. Over time, gaslighting erodes your confidence, your judgment, and your sense of self. Number 3. The micromanager. This one is often dismissed as just annoying, but research tells a darker story. A study published in the Journal of Applied Psychology found that employees under extreme micromanagement showed elevated cortisol levels, the stress hormone, comparable to people experiencing chronic anxiety disorders. Your body is not overreacting. It is responding to a genuine threat to your autonomy. Section 3. Sarah's story. Sarah was a marketing director at a mid-sized tech company in Austin, Texas. By every measure, she was exceptional, creative, driven, loved by her team. Then the company brought in a new VP. Let's call him David. Within 2 weeks, David began subtly undermining Sarah in meetings. He'd rephrase her ideas as his own. He'd CC her entire team on emails, pointing out minor mistakes. He'd praise her on Fridays and send pointed, critical messages on Monday mornings that seemed designed to keep her off balance. Sarah started second-guessing every decision. She worked weekends to try to stay ahead of his criticism. She began apologizing constantly for things that weren't her fault. It took her 8 months to realize what was happening, not because she wasn't smart, but because gaslighting works precisely on smart, conscientious people. People who care. People who try to self-reflect instead of pointing the finger outward. Sarah eventually documented the behavior, escalated to HR with evidence, and transferred to another department. She later described the experience like waking up from a fog and realizing I'd been holding my breath for almost a year. Her story is not unique. It is happening in offices, hospitals, schools, and warehouses around the world right now. Section 4. The Warehouse Case. In 2021, a series of investigative reports, including work from the New York Times, documented the psychological toll of aggressive management practices inside large fulfillment centers. Workers described managers tracking their every movement, punishing bathroom breaks, and using public shaming as a performance tool. The result? Burnout rates that were catastrophically high. Workers reported symptoms consistent with workplace PTSD. Hypervigilance, emotional numbness, difficulty sleeping. One former employee described it. "I stopped being a person at work. I became a machine trying not to get yelled at." This is not just one company's problem, it's a systemic one, and the research backs it up. A 2020 study in the Scandinavian Journal of Work, Environment and Health found that workers with abusive supervisors were 60% more likely to experience depressive episodes than those with supportive managers. 60%. That is not a personality conflict. That is a public health issue. Section 5. What it does to your brain. Now that you understand the enemy, let's talk about you. Here's what chronic exposure to a toxic boss actually does to your brain, and why it's so hard to just shake it off. When you're in a high-stress management environment, your body activates the amygdala, the brain's threat detection system. It floods your body with cortisol and adrenaline. That's your fight-or-flight response. The problem? This response was designed for short-term threats. A predator, a fall, not a person you see every single day for 40 hours a week. When the threat never goes away, your nervous system gets stuck in survival mode. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, in his groundbreaking book, The Body Keeps the Score, explains that prolonged psychological stress, including workplace trauma, can literally reshape neural pathways. Your ability to concentrate, to feel joy, to trust your own instincts, all of it gets compromised. But here is the most important thing I want you to hear today. The brain that was shaped by that environment can be reshaped by leaving it. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change, means that recovery is not just possible, it is the biological default. You were built to heal. Section 6. How to take your power back. All right, let's talk strategy, because understanding the psychology is step 1. Strategy 1. Psychologist Dan Siegel coined this phrase, and it is genuinely transformative. When you can label what's happening, that was gaslighting. That was a narcissistic rage response. That is classic triangulation. You interrupt the cycle of self-blame. Start keeping a private log. Dates, times, what was said, how it made you feel, not for drama, for clarity. Because toxic bosses thrive in ambiguity. The moment you have documentation, you have power. Strategy 2. Protect your inner world. Dr. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, wrote, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response." A toxic boss wants to colonize that space. They want to live rent-free in your head on weekends, at dinner, at 2 a.m. Refuse them. This doesn't mean pretending you're fine. It means building a deliberate firewall between their behavior and your identity. Therapy, journaling, exercise, trusted relationships, these are not luxuries, they are armor. Strategy 3. Build your evidence, build your exit. If you are in a genuinely toxic environment, your goal is not to fix your boss. Let me say that again. Your goal is not to fix your boss. That is not your job, and it is not possible. Your goal is to protect yourself and create options. Start quietly, update your resume, reconnect with your professional network, have conversations, apply for roles, not from a place of panic, from a place of strategy. Research from Harvard Business Review shows that employees who proactively build external networks while still employed are 40% more likely to land roles that represent real career growth versus those who wait until they've hit a breaking point. You deserve to leave on your terms. Strategy 4. Use the Grey Rock Method. Developed in trauma-informed psychology, the Grey Rock Method is simple. Become as boring and unreactive as possible to the toxic person. Give minimal emotional responses. Don't share personal information. Don't engage in power struggles. Toxic managers feed on reaction, on seeing that they've gotten to you. When you become a grey rock, neutral, unmoved, unreadable, you stop being interesting to them. This is not weakness. This is one of the most psychologically sophisticated moves you can make. Strategy 5. Know your rights and use them. Many people don't realize that certain toxic management behaviors cross into legally actionable territory. Harassment, discrimination, creating a hostile work environment, these have legal definitions. If you believe you've experienced any of these, document everything and consider consulting with an employment attorney. Many offer free initial consultations. You do not have to navigate this alone. Section 7. James's story. James was a software engineer who spent 3 years under a manager who took credit for his innovations, isolated him from senior leadership, and told him, more than once, that he wasn't leadership material. James believed it, for a while. Then one day, at the suggestion of his therapist, he started writing down every contribution he had made, every project, every solution, every moment he had shown up. The list was long. It was undeniable. He shared his work portfolio with a director in another division. Within 6 weeks, he had an internal transfer. Within a year, he was leading his own team. His old manager, still in the same role, still stuck. James told me, "The most radical thing I ever did was decide that one person's opinion of me was not the final word on who I am. That is the truth I want to leave you with today. If you've made it this far, I want you to know something. The fact that you're seeking answers, that you're trying to understand, to heal, to grow, that is already an act of power. Most people just suffer in silence, not you. So here's what I want you to do right now. Leave a comment below and tell me, what is one thing you're going to do this week to protect your energy from a toxic environment? It doesn't have to be dramatic. It can be small. Small is how change begins. If this video helped you, share it with someone who needs it today. You might not know who that person is, but they're out there, with their phone in their hand, looking for exactly this. Subscribe if you haven't already. We go deep on psychology, resilience, and human behavior every week. And remember, you were not built to just survive. You were built to lead your own life. I'll see you in the next one.